Meanwhile, in the eyes of Dawn Elithel, the Shadow Hearts were upon us. I knew as soon as the shadowy creatures appeared nearby. The sky reddened until it felt like the sun would set, but it was only early noon. The trees shuddered, the grass whistled lowly, as if to warn us. Shadows rose from the earth like ash carried in the wind as some form of their dark manifest. Everything fell dead silent. No birds, no animals, we could scarcely even hear the wind. After the world of Shoto nearly fell, these monsters became rampant. Large numbers scoured the world. They became almost impossible to manage. A number of us had turned into something of shadow heart hunters for the people, training their armies and people to deal with the insidious monsters. Their claws excreted venom that eventually killed their target. Their sheer presence only served to create even more of them, and they soon became an enormous problem. I'd been here for some time, blending in with Shoto and helping the people learn how to fight shadow hearts. I didn't have much else to do, being not sure where Ryoku, Katil, or Anna were right now, and I liked doing something useful with my time. Creator knew I had enough experience fighting shadow hearts anyway back in the old days. My reward was having a place of my own in Shoto's grand castle, a place I only got to spend a few days at a time before the next attack. In the meantime, I just kept my eyes and ears open waiting for news. Our roaming on this day took us to the wildlands west of the capital, where the countryside was dotted with sparse woods and the land rolled with hills more than any spot of level land. We hadn't gone out here much. We traveled south to the enthrallment jungle and to the swamps even further beyond. We trekked back and forth to Balgana in the east, but never into the actual magical capital itself. Scouts claimed Arthexis still had hard feelings for the capital after the election. We even neared the northern Fort Issamus on our Shadowheart hunts. This, however, was my first trip this far to the west, past the humble village of Rulio. This far west, a great ravine split apart the land, and hills rolled on either side of us as we braved the chasm. We noticed the reddening sky as soon as we entered, and darkness rolled across the valley. When we realized how many there were, Guildford sent a scout for backup. Even then, we might not have enough time. Cursing under my breath, I drew some of my hair back and tied it loosely with a vine. Vines tended to appear around me. Being one of druidic and elven blood, nature liked me a lot. I could hear the whispers of the trees and the earth like there were simply other faces around me. Nature saw me as a daughter, and each singular vine, leaf, tree, and even fruits and vegetables saw me as a sibling. Now nature thrummed in anticipation around me, sensing my anxiety for the impending fight. 3 other mages circled near me, and all regarded me nervously. Shoto Capital didn't boast so many mages, especially since Balgana locked itself away from us, and few of ours were of much consequence. The majority of them made better healers than battle mages, but I couldn't do this alone. I needed them. Regeku Jiro led the charge at the head of his army, golden sword hoisted in the air, his dark blue hair an icon at the head. Regeku was not the type of man to bark orders from afar. Nay, he was far from that. Oliver Rouge, his second-in-command and strategist, ensured Regeku's passionate spur into battle wasn't in folly. Urging his men forward, signaling to the scattered archers on the banks of the ravine, scrutinizing our formation. On either side of the ridge, Alex Retton and Joey Elder surveyed the battlefield. Alex, newly a field commander, sat aside a blush-blonde mare, with bow in hand, a keen eye on the incoming darkness. Joey, a close friend to Alex now and promising soldier, bared his lethal black sword as he scanned for an opening. Wearing his usual red sweater sticking out beneath Shoto in armor, Joey surprised me by sticking around in Shoto's time of need as well. I didn't know much about Ryoku's friend overall, but I appreciated having a fellow defender around at a time like this. The monsters fell upon us as easily as a shadow from a bird's flight overhead. They came in all shapes and sizes. The strange octopi-like creatures called Gokri made up much of their ranks. I swallowed hard noticing them. They weren't a simple shadow heart to deal with. Others were larger, stepping out from beneath the sparse trees with claws like tendrils. Shoto didn't seem to harbor the simple silhouettes or other common breeds of shadow hearts. Gokri and their ilk were dangerous, and it meant nothing good for Shoto. I coaxed my own energy into the grass as simultaneous shouts of attack lit the field. Nature was hesitant to lash out at the insidious dark creatures, but she knew she had to. If they weren't stopped, shadow hearts would burn this world to the ground. A burst of arrows rained down into the ravine. As they struck a few shadow hearts down, a thick vine tore through the ground next to them, lashing up to ensnare one of the large, clawed shadow hearts, gripping it heavily around the shoulders. It took little to bring the monster to dust. In its wake, I spotted our field commander, who had already lunged into the fray. Perhaps our most devoted to Shouto and most transformed, Guilford. Clad in full armor and a long black cape emblazoned with the emblem of the king's own, he wielded a wicked set of hand axes with edges of sharp black steel, weaving in and out of the Shadowheart ranks like he was the battle himself. He'd cut his hair recently. Somehow our previous school teacher looked younger than ever before. It wasn't the kind of young where I pictured him back in our old classroom, though. He was a soldier now, a knight of the king's own. I sometimes felt great trepidation watching my old school teacher ride into battle. It had only been months since he died in our world, the land of the living. That wound was fresh in all of us, and now he staked his afterlife in the throes of battle. Ryoku definitely wouldn't be okay if we lost our old soldier a second time. At least, I figured half-heartedly, the old teacher seemed happier now. Shouto was his new home. The same tree that lashed out its roots gave a tremendous shudder, shedding much of its leaves. Where they fell upon the Shadowheart hosts, the dark entities sliced to ribbons. In wake of the razor-sharp leaves, Rigeku roared his men to action. Dozens of armored feet slammed the rocky ravine floor in tandem, their shouts rising up like our own sort of monster over the din. At a shout from Joey, another volley of arrows followed. It wasn't long before I spotted my own adversary. An unwelcome figure floated above the heads of the horde. A mystic, we called them simply. With peaked hats and shadowy outlines that resembled cloaks. Their latent power was an obvious one, even back in the day. This one already singled me out and shimmered with a red aura. I put my druidic magic on the back burner and touched on my more innate sense of magic. Being an elf and what my people called the light filled me with capacity for a rare form of magic. My skills largely turned to healing and protecting others, but I wasn't defenseless in the least. Light runes shimmered before my eyes, formed in the complex tongues of magic. Just as the mystic unleashed a horrific burst of flames, my magic flared to life. Feet before the frontmost of our lines, a translucent barrier shimmered to life. The flames slammed into it like a dam thrust in the middle of a river. I could feel the blast of heat from where I was. I heard gasps among some of our men. The newer ones, likely. Many feared my natural druidic magic, and yet gasped in awe before my elven arts. It was something I was long since used to. The flames whittled against my barrier for almost a minute. The heat grew intensely, and I broke into a cold sweat from upholding my protection. Some flames licked up simpler Shadowhearts without the brains to get away from the fire. Not a lot of Shadowhearts were intelligent life forms. Not even one of our men passed my shield. It grew in intensity until black spots danced behind my eyes before the mystic relented, and the flames whooshed out, leaving the ravine almost cold in its wake. As soon as the barrier lapsed, a black-handled axe sailed through the air, up over our lines, and struck the creature down from where it hovered. The axe landed alone amid a pile of black ash, and Rigeku snatched it up, waving it over his head. "Hey Gil, keep a better grip on your weapons, yeah?" Guilford popped out of the fray quickly, wiping Shadowheart ash off his other axe before accepting his from Rigeku. "At least I've got my own weapon to keep a grip on, Lord General." I hid a smirk as I turned away from them. It was subtle, but a stabbing remark on Rigeku's marriage was something commonplace between the two. Guilford would never foster ill intent towards Rigeku's beautiful wife, Melodia, but the commander and the king's own knight had grown thick as thieves over the last few years. I never thought I'd come to see my old teacher bantering like a schoolboy with the esteemed general of an army. Rigeku grimaced, returning his focus to the Shadowheart fray. Yeah, barks of a wild dog. And yips from a chained one, Guilford replied, but he already turned mid-strike and cleaved one of the huge clawed Shadowhearts through the chest, reducing the monster to ash. When Rigeku shot him a look, Oliver stepped in to block a strike that would have hit his Lord General. It went all but unnoticed. A shrill noise caught my attention from above. Another mystic, a red aura already seared around it. Guilford and Rigeku saw it at the same time. Before I could activate my magic, a distinct noise carried out over all the ruckus in the ravine with a haunting note. I couldn't identify it before a bluish-white streak shot through the air at the mystic. Whatever it was, it dragged the Shadowheart to the ground and into the horde below. Guilford and I exchanged glances, then turned to Rigeku. He was already shouting orders for his men to cut a path to the entity that stepped in. Whatever it was, it had saved at least a handful of us, if not a larger sum. We couldn't let it get overwhelmed. However, we didn't have time to cut a path. In a spray of dark matter and electric bolts of energy, the bluish-white figure appeared in the thick of the horde ahead of us. It was with stunned silence that we beheld the arrival of a large wolf. The creature radiated electric energy like a storm cloud, mostly from a pair of golden horns upon its head. The fur along its back and forearms was mostly a bright, snapping shade of blue, and the underside of the beast as white as snow. A pair of intelligent, narrowed black eyes took us in shortly, then the creature snorted. Light of Aletheia, came a deep voice from the creature. I did not expect to find you at the head of an army. Who? I started. A storm of movement broke out behind me. I turned, spooked, only to find all men in the army drop to a knee. Joey and Alex followed suit, though they looked a little confused. Regaku, Guildford, and I stayed standing, though hesitantly. Who's this big fella? Regaku asked casually, jabbing his thumb at the huge wolf. A mightily powerful creature, no doubt, Oliver answered, already having bent the knee. One better kept on our side, I would dare say. A really, really good dog, Alex added, hiding a big grin as he looked at the wolf in adoration. No kidding, Joey agreed, covering a smirk of his own with his sleeve. But something about him is familiar. He radiates power, do you think? Rise, people of Shouto, the wolf spoke. It sounded male, with a rich, vibrant sort of nobility to its voice. I am a god, but not the kind deserving of your worship. Rather, I seek your help. However, the wolf went on, turning to face the looming horde of shadow hearts behind him. He'd cut himself quite the path to reach us, but the horde seemed endless. They would be upon us again in seconds. It seems I am required to earn my favor. In the heat of battle, the gears in my mind started to click, and I understood who the creature was as he sort of lowered his front legs, dipping his snout towards us in a gesture of respect. My name is Fenver, god of wolves. I fought on your behalf in Orden. And this day, I am one of Shouto. With a rippling snarl and a resounding ambience of thunder, the creature wheeled around as easily as he arrived, lunging into the fray. Lightning sprayed out from his electric fur in all directions. Not even a spark touched our men. I expected more fear from our men, but instead came raucous cheer and eager shouts. Men rushed past me, once more the figure of Shouto in vigor and honor. They'd recognized the wolf god, I realized, faster than I did. Maybe it was for the reverence of his late father, Loki, who gave his life to protect Shouto 2 years ago in their time. Once generally disliked where he went, the trickster became quite a symbol of the people after saving this world. My focus turned to my magic. I threw everything I had into barriers to protect my team, and into the trees and the earth to rise and defend us.